Good morning. दुसरे खूप थकलं असं वाटतं. चांगले असं बोर झालेलं ते तेच 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 बोर झाले असे थोडेसे कमी किमतीचे 600-700
Shall we start, sir?
I am ready when you are.
The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. With this line, I, Dr. Tejaswini Panse, wish a very good morning to all. Dear participants, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce today's distinguished speaker, Mr. David Haney, Director, Fort Base, Texas, USA. Mr. Haney brings a wealth of expertise and experience to our virtual stage, encompassing a diverse range of roles and accomplishments. As an adjunct college professor, he has not only imparted knowledge but has also inspired countless individuals to strive for excellence in their academic pursuits. In addition to his academic endeavors, Mr. Hani has played pivotal roles in coaching company management, global team building, and IT operations, recovery services, and managed services. His extensive experience in change and implementation technical operations, coupled with his proficiency in service delivery and operation management underscores his ability to navigate complex organizational challenges with fineness and precision. Furthermore, Mr. Hani's recent experience as the India country manager of a multinational corporation speaks volumes about his adeptness in business management and operations on a global scale. His expertise in project management, spanning IT infrastructure migration, customer service development, and application development, underscores his capacity to drive transformative change and deliver results driven solutions. Mr. Hani's professional accreditations, including being PMI certified in project management and ITIL V3 Foundation certified, highlight his commitment to excellence and proficiency in his field. As we eagerly anticipate the insights and wisdom he will share with us today, let us extend a warm virtual welcome to Mr. David Hani, a true luminary in the branches of academia, business, and technology. Welcome, sir. Dr. Hani, who would be enlightening with us on AI's potential impact on the changing face of human resources. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that warm introduction. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you can hear me today. We are going to be talking about AI and its impact on HR. Obviously, AI is going to have a much larger impact on the world than just HR, but it is such a huge opportunity with so many facets that we're only going to be focusing on the HR facet today. I would like to begin by walking you down a brief summary of our agenda, if I may. Let me launch the PowerPoint presentation, and then we will begin sharing and moving forward. So as each of you can see, AI's potential impact on the changing face of human resources is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I've had the opportunity for the past number of months to work with another colleague at another university in India, specifically Symbiosis in Pune at the College of Management, and Dr. Vanishri Pabalkar, to write a paper on investigations that I have been doing along with my colleagues, including John Bradshaw, the CEO of Codebase, on the impact of AI. We have been focusing primarily at Codebase on the impact to software development and what this is doing with software. But at Dr. Pabalkar's suggestion, I started looking at some of the items associated with human resources. And what I found was that I believe human resources is one of the three biggest areas where AI can make a profound impact on the forward progress and change of any organization, be it corporate, be it private, be it educational, be it nonprofit. It has the ability to impact them all. And so today's agenda is going to be divided into three parts, ladies and gentlemen. First, we're going to look at HR under siege. And for those of you who have an HR background or who participate in HR, you're going to see some things that are probably familiar. You may see and hear some things that you might not like hearing. So sorry, I apologize in advance. But the coin will turn to the other side very quickly. And we will dive off into why HR is put in these situations and what is the company and the organization's responsibility to help them get out of it. Then we'll spend some time on facts you may not be aware of specific to AI in your organization. And then we will end on ideas your organization can use with a high-level version of a program management plan or project plan, if you will, at a very high level that you might be able to use to drive AI into your organization. And we'll even dive off into some of the details associated with requirements that you might use in order to drive some of the fundamental changes in areas of HR that you probably do all the time. But first, before we proceed on, we're going to have a segue, if you will, into personal experiences with HR. I want to ask everyone, if you would, I'm sure most, if not all of you, have some experience with HR. You have either worked with HR in your organization, you as a manager have had to manage people within that organization, you may even be a member of HR. Now, when I first became a manager for the very first time at PricewaterhouseCoopers in the early 1990s, I was given a little item to help me manage as a first-time manager at Pricewaterhouse by my managing director. And his name, I will call him Mike. We'll leave his last name unstated. And Mike gave me this. This little item right here is George. And as you can see, George is a nice little fellow. He has a wonderful look about him. I've had him since the 1990s, so he's survived very well. He's doing much better than I am in terms of how he looks after all these years. And George's purpose was stated by my managing director at PricewaterhouseCoopers for 3 things. Number 1, when you wish to say something to one of your new employees that you can't say, go in your office and grab George, smile very well, and hold him and do this. And then breathe out, and then go about your business from behind your closed door. You will also want to do this at times when you're dealing with your fellow managers or your upper management. And then he said, and I quote, but it's most likely that you will use it the most when you're dealing with HR. George. I highly recommend everyone have one. George has been with me for a long time. And he's with me because HR at some point becomes a frustration for us all. They have an innumerable task of trying to help us perform our jobs with people. But every person that makes up people is different. So how can one small group with one small set of rules, with one small set of policies, adapt to allow you to be helpful and functional in dealing with each individual? It's almost an impossibility. And this puts HR behind the 8 ball all the time. So let's bounce, if we will, back to the application, and let's look at the program. Whether you go out on the internet and you start reading an 18-year-old Fast Company article written in Argentina, where the leaders claim that HR's design doesn't show that they understand their purpose at an organization, or whether you read an Australian article written in 2011 about vagueness, indiscretion, paperwork fixations are all warning signs that your human resources team might be a dud, a failure. Or whether you're looking at a 2015 US Harvard Business Review article about why we love to hate HR and what can we do about it, stating that administrivia is a sign that your HR department doesn't have focus and lacks vision. Or whether we're looking at a Gulf Times article from Qatar written in 2015 titled Why People Hate HR, about not having a good relationship with HR and about individual members of the organization being so adamant in their focus against HR that hatred is a word they will actually use to describe it. But that's not all. We can even come right back here to India and have a People Matters article that was written in 2017 that's titled Why We Still Hate HR. And the article talks about a 12-year study the individual who wrote the article did, where they concluded after the 12 years that the key item about HR is our leaders hate us. But that's not all. We can look at a Nigerian article written just last year about toxicity and toxic workplaces that refers to HR as an organization that could be leaderless and soulless. And it's not just the places I mentioned before, but even this year, just a couple of months ago, a Panda Yo article written in China began to talk about how corporate leaders are too pecking order oriented and they and HR need to start focusing on the individuals instead of a hierarchy. Now think about that. Considering how closed in China is, imagine that that article actually got out on the internet. And so, regardless of what you look at, these articles represent a microcosm of what we see out in the world. 18 years just in the article cited here. That's half of a business career generation. Your career usually lasts 30 to 40 years. 18 years is about half of a career generation. And if this represents just some of the hundreds and possibly thousands of articles that are out there to be read in newsprint, online, etc., what does that tell us? Well, what it tells me is North America, South America, North Asia, South Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Australia, Europe, literally every continent in the world that is naturally populated by human beings is represented just on the two previous slides. And when you put all of it together, it comes down to one thing. No matter what language, no matter what country, no matter what culture, no matter what continent, the vilification of HR is one of the truly few global human experiences that we all share. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. HR around the world has been more successful in getting people to focus on it and have the same thought about it than the United Nations has been able to do in terms of global effect on the human populace of this planet. Maybe HR should run the UN if they're that successful. But, joking aside, one of the things that we need to focus on is why this is happening. People, HR is caught between the proverbial rock and the hard place. They are constantly being sandwiched between two competing ideas within every organization. And it doesn't matter if it's a public company, a private company, an organization in education, a nonprofit, it happens everywhere because it deals with people. And people are the same everywhere when it comes to being individuals and a little bit different from the person next to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe, and I am going to espouse in this conversation, that management, the senior leadership of every organization, in the last business generation has abdicated their responsibility to grow people management skills and has put HR in the scapegoat position of absorbing the blame for this irresponsibility. That's right. You go back just a few generations ago, business generations, 100 years, and you won't find a lot of HR organizations in existence. What you will find instead is that managers were teaching their new managers how to be managers. They took the physical triviality of administration and siphoned it off to administrative assistants. They took the management of the task and signed it off to subject matter experts. And they took the issue of managing people and they focused that on the managers. But what has happened in the last 100 years? Companies tried to get more efficient. They tried to save money. They tried to become more profitable. And we see administrative assistants moving away and not being part of the middle management tier anymore. We see subject matter experts moving out and not being part of the middle management tier anymore. We see many middle managers being promoted because of their subject matter expertise and not because of their people management skills. And those people are being rewarded for having tried to manage people without the right knowledge and expertise. It puts them in a no-win position. So we can do one of two things. We can blame our efficiency on the organizational designs of making more efficient and more profitable companies, or we can create an HR organization who we will task with loosely defining a box that we almost live inside in terms of rules and policies. And then any time that that box doesn't work, we blame HR. Obviously, this is not going to be a successful formula. And as we have progressed over the last 100 years in business, that formula has become less and less successful. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe artificial intelligence can be the key tool to changing this perception of how HR functions and how it can be successful in the performance of its role in organizations around the world. And we're going to talk about some very specific items associated with that today. But this brings me to segue number 2, if you will, just for a moment. One of the things that I have seen in talking about artificial intelligence is that it is a very, very polarizing activity. Very few people are on the fence. They either think artificial intelligence can change the entire world for the better, or they think artificial intelligence is going to change the entire world for the worse. We have people who think that it can help us make machines help us do our jobs and live our lives better. And we have people who think the robots are going to take over the world and leave humankind behind. It's a very polarizing subject. And it creates a whole lot of rah-rah cheerleading and a whole lot of naysayers who are anti, go away. What we have to be as educators, as business women and men, as people who lead others by our example and by our words, we have to show moderation, we have to show an open mind, and we have to show the ability to learn and allow things to progress. If we don't, we're part of the problem, not part of the solution. And so moving on to the next item in the presentation, we're going to move out of the section on what brought us here and the situation that put HR in this predicament. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about some facts you may be aware of and some you may not be aware of. Fact number 1. Oracle conducted in 2019, just before the pandemic, a future and workplace study amongst its own people. Over 8,000 employees, managers, and HR managers in 10 different countries participated. And what they found, among many other things, is that 50% of the workforce was already using some form of artificial intelligence in Oracle in 2019, as opposed to just 32% earlier. But so many people were having difficulty using it that 76% of the employees and 81% of the HR managers found it challenging to keep up with the technological changes in the workplace. Because just 5 years ago, using artificial intelligence effectively might require you to understand logic structure, might require you to formulate your questions using mathematics, and might even require you to write some code in order to get the artificial intelligence to give you back the information you wanted. Not anymore. That's how much we've progressed in just the last 5 years. And it's not even taken 5 years to do it. But let's forget about what Oracle was doing 5 years ago And let's look at something from this year. In February of this year, just 2 months ago, Fox Business published an article entitled, "Does ChatGPT Give Better Career Advice Than Your Boss?" Nearly half of Generation Z said yes. That's right. The article cited a career development platform study done by a company called Into. And in that study, ladies and gentlemen, 59% of the employees told the people who were asking these questions that their company either rarely or never helped them explore opportunities for growth outside their current department. It was stick with what you're doing or leave the company. What a shame. But more importantly than that, 46% of workers said their manager does not know how to help them with their career development. And of the younger workers, Generation Z, those people that are in their 30s, graduated from college just 10 years ago, that are making up more and more of the workforce, of those people, 62% said they would like to talk to their manager more often about their career, but their manager was too busy to talk to them. Of course, none of us has ever experienced that, have we? That was a joke. Of course, we've all experienced that. And why are we experiencing it? Because of what I told you just a few minutes ago. As our companies have tried to become more efficient and they want to become more profitable, they get rid of ancillary people who perform certain roles, and in many cases, those jobs get dumped back on the middle managers. Middle managers now having to do timesheet reviews, checking with their employees if they're working or not. And now in this day and age of remote work, it's the manager's job to make sure that their remote workers are actually doing their job and online when they're supposed to be, performing their task as directed. Oh, and they also have to do performance reviews and performance improvement plans, and they have to go out and hire, and they have to fire. And when you start to add all this up, how do they have time to coach their employees when they have all these other tasks on their shoulders? When you really start to look at it, it's kind of obvious why this newest generation believes their managers are too busy to talk to them. But ladies and gentlemen, while we go over these items here, the biggest item is now at the bottom of your screen. 47% of Generation Z, remember these 30-somethings that have been out of college for about 10 years, said they got better career advice from an AI tool like ChatGPT than they were getting from their manager. Now let's focus on that for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Almost half of the generation working at your organization are saying that they're getting better career advice for how to move their career forward from an AI tool than they're getting from their boss. Notice the words, got better career advice. That's taken directly from the article. That's not going to get better career advice when AI gets here. That's not, I'm getting better career advice tomorrow. That, ladies and gentlemen, is past tense. They are already doing it. They are already using ChatGPT and other tools out there from Microsoft and from Google in order to perform this career advice. And they're taking their confidential information about themselves and their organization out into the public domain to put into these tools to get that advice. Now, doesn't that set off a few alarm bells in your mind about the confidential data of the company or the organization you're working in being placed into a publicly available AI tool? Because you know the moment that that data is entered into that AI tool, it is part of the program and it will never be taken out and it will never be separated from it again. This should raise alarm bells with people all over the world in management and decision-making capacities in companies. Now, there's two possibilities that could come in your mind from this for most people. Either the desire to get on the train and let's get with the program on AI, or the people who want to play ostrich and put their head in the sand and just hope that AI gets turned off. Well, hope is not a good way to feed yourself, and hope is also not a good way to deal with AI. But let's assume for a moment that you don't think the Oracle information applies to your organization, or that you don't think this Fox Business Review of this company applies to your organization either. Well, why don't we look at this? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a senior member with the IEEE, and the IEEE is the largest technical professional organization in the world. Look at the screen for a moment. This came out on Monday of this past week. This is less than 7-day-old information. IEEE is hosting a webinar to teach people for free, all that wish to come, how to use ChatGPT in the workplace. That's right, how to use a public domain that everybody can access AI tool to do things in your confidential and private organization. Does that concern you a little bit? There it is. You don't think that's going to affect you? Well, then maybe this will set your mind. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a guide written by a gentleman named Chris Donnelly, who I think actually does some pretty good work, and who has published his work on LinkedIn, a tool that I am sure most everyone on this call and this Zoom know and use on a regular basis. This is how to use ChatGPT to find a job. Whether you're looking for a job out of college, or you are unhappy with the job you have now, or you want to move to a new job from one company to the next, here is a how-to document being published to the masses on how to use ChatGPT, a public domain AI tool, in order to deal with their desire to move forward in their career. And if you read this closely, it will ask for specific information from your organization to be input into it in order to give them back the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, there's something you should have taken from this by now in this conversation. AI is here. This isn't about what's going to happen tomorrow. This is about what's happening now. This is something that your organization needs to deal with. And if you're not ready to deal with it this hour, this day, this process, then you have become an ostrich and your head is planted in the sand. Was my statement stiff? It was meant to be. This is something that needs to be dealt with by every organization in the world. So now let's have our third little and last little segue, if you will, about dealing with the law and other items. There are people out there, people who have knowledge, who will tell you in no uncertain terms that there are lawsuits in play against these companies regarding AI, about the use of copyright information, and we shouldn't get into AI until these lawsuits have been dealt with. We shouldn't move forward in dealing with AI until we have been given the lessons from the law. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything in my life that I've learned from watching governments and organizations deal with the forward progress of humankind and the law, it is that by the time the law gets written and communicated to you, the train will have already left the station and you'll be left behind running, trying to catch it up, and you never will. AI is here. It is not something you can ignore. It is not something you can dismiss. And for those people who try, they are dinosaurs. And unfortunately, they will go the way of the dinosaur very quickly. So, now that we've had a conversation about how HR is put between a rock and a hard place regarding this and how AI might help it solve this problem, and now that we've looked at some of the data out there of how people who are working in your organization are actually using AI without telling you and without notifying you in the public domain in order to move their careers forward, let's talk about some things that your organization could do in order to move AI forward for your company, your college, your industry. So as we move back to the presentation, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive off into some ideas. One, if your organization has invested in an ERP solution for HR, PeopleSoft, ServiceNow, one of dozens that are out there, then in most cases, those companies are already working on an AI solution to add to their tool because they have already seen the train coming and they're trying to get in front of it. And you know why? Because AI, properly implemented, has the ability to make ERP tools obsolete. Think about that. In order to use most ERP tools, you have to take your data and you have to put it into their system, their way, with their documentation standards, in their format, on their templates, in their tool, in order to take advantage of what the ERP system can do. But AI has the ability to change that game and to take the coin and flip it completely over on its back. AI has the ability to plug into the data sources you already have. Use those data sources for what it needs to gather information on. Have you ask it questions and have it go search your data sources that haven't been converted, that are off on Google Drive, that are in your school server, that are in your company web interface, and pull that information in and give you the answers without you having to spend time documentation, data entering, and formatting the information into the AI tool. This is one of the great changes that AI brings to the industry. And the ERP companies know it. And if they don't get out in front of it themselves and come up with these tools, people are going to find ways to make the ERP tools obsolete. And so, the ERP companies, being intelligent, are working on very specific and focused versions of AI. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who might not be aware of the term, there's traditional AI, which is much more from the past and much more like ChatGPT 3.5. And then there's generative AI. Let's go over this just a second because I want you to understand the difference because it's an important difference. Traditional AI is to use David Sweener's LinkedIn and Tiny Tech Guides information, really mostly just data plus analytics plus automation. That's your traditional focus. We have a mountain of data. We have the ability to analyze text sentences. Someone types a text sentence of a question into the AI, and its analytics go out and search all that data to find what it thinks is the most commonly occurring accurate version of the answer to the question asked. And then the automation takes pieces from various answers, pieces together one answer, and presents it back to you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is, in a nutshell, ChatGPT 3.5, the one that was introduced last year. But generative AI, the ones that are out there now, are a collection of deep learning algorithms that can generate human-like responses on thought and content. Imagine, if you would, ladies and gentlemen, that traditional AI is a humongous ball, let's say a football. And then you decided to add algorithms in that mathematically cause it to make algebraic decision making. For example, for those of us who remember our algebra, a plus b equals c. If a is equal to x and b is equal to y, then you can infer that x plus y also equals c. Traditional AI would not make inferences like that. Generative AI can do so. So you insert algorithms in there that help it make inferences and help it make leaps of logic. Then you reduce the data sets to pieces that are very focused on a particular subject, such as HR. Now the ball of AI has reduced from the big football that people kick around on the field down to the size of a grapefruit. And then you start to focus its content on specific questions and answers, on specific formulae, build logic around it, and help it generate through that logic repeatedly. Just like you learned mathematics by doing math problems repeatedly, the AI learns ideas by asking and answering the questions repeatedly. And as it gets more focused and more tight, the generative AI now looks more like a cricket ball, highly focused, very specific, highly useful for pointed question and answer in key subjects. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the general walkthrough from how we've progressed from traditional AI down to generative AI. And generative AI is where you're going to see the greatest forward progress in these tools going forward in the near future. And by the near future, I don't mean 5 years from now. I mean 5 months from now. And in some cases, 5 hours from now. So this is going to make you laugh because I see so many people here are from the education industry. When I originally worked with Dr. Pavalkar and we were writing this information down and putting this article together between the months of December and March, there were items I was looking up and discussing with potential companies out there that they were working on in generative AI for HR that hadn't yet been released. But even though our article is still in the final review stage and has not yet been published, HR and AI has moved much faster than the documentation and publishing process of the education industry. And now there are multiple companies out there that have generative AI solutions for the HR problem that we are discussing here today. According to the meetcody.ai blog, which I highly recommend if you're interested in this subject, you go and review, there's an application called FEAI, which is very specifically pointed at performance assessment and 360 feedback, learning the data, learning your business, seeing how you do it, making recommendations for improvement, and then automating processes without you having to code it. There's other tools like Workable and Fetcher AI that are specifically focused on the recruiting process. Where to go, who to plug into, Naukri, LinkedIn, where do you get the information from, Dice, etc. You have tools like Paradox AI and Zoho Recruit who help you with the interview process, scheduling, bringing the right people in, asking the right questions in the interview depending on what you're interviewing for, writing job offers for you, and then onboarding the people with the appropriate items from the rest of the industry so people can compare notes on making sure that these items are taken into account. Then there's Lena AI, which is a process workflow and automated FAQ tool. And I believe very, very strongly in these process workflow and automated FAQ tools. Think about it. A quick tangent. How often have you gone to an FAQ site hoping that it would give you an answer to a question, only to be disappointed that the question that was important to you was not listed anywhere on that FAQ site? And after you dug around, you realize not only is the answer you're looking for not there, but you have no ability to go out and get that answer from the site, and you have no ability to really change that site for it to have that answer for you now or at a later time. But with a tool like Lena AI, it would look at the questions people are asking, and it would update the FAQ site on a regular basis, as often as daily if you wished, based on the frequency of what's asked, how it's being asked, why it's being asked, and it could even tailor FAQs per user. Yes, that's right. Something that no HR organization in the world could possibly do because there's not enough people and there aren't enough hours in the day, but an AI tool can do it. And then last but certainly not least, UKG Pro. The U is umlauted as per the German if you go out and look at it online. And they focus, that AI generative piece is looking at key performance indicators, KPIs, and analytics. Now look at just the list that's on the screen. These are things your company can use right now. Not tomorrow, not next month, not next year, today. And you can plug them in. So, what if you wanted to start from scratch? What if you and I just sat down and we said, okay, we've decided we want to put some AI into our HR process, but we need a high-level project plan. Who knows what steps we need to do? Well, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we try this? First, if you have one of these ERP tools, utilize its AI to plug in to get a head start. But if you don't, let's start from scratch. Grab one of these AI tools we've just talked about, depending on where we wish to start in the process, and connect it to our data sources. And you know what your data sources are. The spreadsheet repository you have on the server, Google Sheets, your email system, your document repositories, all those PDFs that you've kept around, or scanned copies of information. These are your documentation sources. Plug the AI into them and let the AI go read and learn. Then, once you have those data sources connected, utilize a software development team or one of your own, or get one temporarily and work on the pre-built plugins that normally come with these generative AI tools and plug them into your communication channels. Let's say that you use an email service like Google Mail for your email. Fine, this can plug into it. You've decided to use Slack as your organization's chat tool. It can plug into that. Whatever you're using for communication, plug it in. Many of these tools already have the plugins, so it's a simple issue of filling in the gaps. You may find you don't even need much of a software development team. But if you need a software development team to help you do this, this is relatively easy to find out there. And it's one of the things that Codebase does, and that's what brought me to this subject in the first place. Now, as part of your communication plan to your staff, either tell your entire audience or pick a beta test group and specifically tell them that you're going to call out all the communication that comes from AI in a specific format with a specific name, so that they know up front what AI is and what it's not. That way your staff and managers know it's there, they can communicate about it beforehand, they know that it's a trial run. Don't be afraid that if they know the AI's there, they won't use it. That's why you picked them to be part of your focus group, because you want them to use it. And most people who volunteer or want to be part of these groups are going to try to use it. Remember, it's in your best interest to move forward here. Don't let the naysayers get in the way, because the train for AI is already moving down the tracks. Then, now that you have your staff playing around with this new AI and using it for basic Q&A as a starting point, then have your IT and your HR teams begin to track the number of external hits that are going to AI sites through your network firewalls versus the number of internal hits that are going to your AI in your system. Now, this may sound complicated, but it's actually not that hard to do. And one of the things you're going to notice right off the bat is the people are using AI out there, whether you like it or not, and they're using it externally. And when you first roll out your new AI, not a whole lot of people are using it. Here's a hint. The goal is not to have your own organizational AI take the place of the external AI. If that happens, it would be a miracle. The goal is to simply have the gap between the internal AI you've just built and the ones they're using outside slowly begin to see their gaps merge and slowly show the gap lessening. Now that you've got some baseline usability information within that model, here's the important next step. Fork your project into 2 progress points simultaneously. Number 1, take the top 5 most asked questions from your user base and the top 5 most asked questions from your management and put them together in a list. Start to work on them one at a time and accomplish them one at a time, preferably one from the staff, one from the management, one from the staff, one from the management, and build on your progress like ingredients on a sandwich. Now, I've had some debates with some project managers out there who believe, no, we should work on all 10 at once. And we should make sure that whenever we roll this out and all 10 hit, it's a big show and a big bang and everything hits at one time. And my response to that is, if you've got people that you're working with that are patient enough to wait for you to get everything done at once, great. But that does not describe 97% of the population. 97% of the population of the world are only going to give you so much patience. They need to see progress. Incremental, piecemeal progress. And the only way you're going to do that is to break this down into individual accomplishments one at a time and deliver them that way. So as your user group begins to show you some patience because they're seeing individual progress one at a time, they'll give you the opportunity to continue to move forward in training your model. But as the people who are funding the effort, the senior management and the board, see their leadership values being placed into the model one at a time, they will continue to see the opportunities to help the business grow. That will buy you more time and more funding to continue the progress. Remember, layers of a sandwich. One for the user community, one for management. Boom, boom, boom. Once you've established this rhythm, ladies and gentlemen, now comes your next key step. You have to focus hard on middle management. But wait a minute, we want to do this for the individual users in the organization. Or, hey, the people that are funding this are the board and the senior leadership. Why don't we do it for them first? Nope. The senior leadership who are doing the funding are not going to take the time to sit down and play with the tool themselves. They're going to ask the managers that work for them what they think of the tool. And the user community who's out there are going to be looking to their managers for how much they can do in that tool, what the tool accomplishes, and whether or not they can use what that tool says as part of their job. Since both the people in the lower part of the pyramid and the top of the pyramid are both looking at the middle managers, focus on the middle managers hard, because those are the ones that are getting the questions asked from both ends, and they're the ones that need the most help, and they're the ones that are going to drive your greatest success. Things like timesheets, expense reporting and approvals, health and wellness checks for your remote workers, spot checks for activity progress, periodic surveys of staff for feedback. Things like this are going to be quick wins that your AI tool can help HR and other organizations within your company or your larger org benefit and do so quickly. This is not going to take years to implement. It may not even take months. Then, ladies and gentlemen, the coup de grace. hiring, firing, and performance reviews. Now we've only got about 5 or 10 minutes here left before I need to finish and we go into the Q&A. So I'm going to go through these last pieces a little faster than I would have liked, but I wanted to show you how we're going to change our focus here from a pseudo project plan of how to do AI into things that look like requirements documents of what the AI is supposed to do. So we're going to start right here with example number 1, and apologies for the busy screen, but read it like a newspaper, first left, then right. So take your current HR department may have a library of good job descriptions. Let's start with job descriptions as number 1. They might even have a small library of job descriptions they've pulled from other companies and from other sources. And if they're really, really inventive, they might even have subdivided those job descriptions used in the past by the organizational department or by the manager themselves. Not likely, but guess what? The AI can do it. And if the company has spent this time getting an ERP tool in place, then you can plug this into the ERP tool. And even if you're not, you can build one like we just talked about in the previous slides. And then you can start to look at your matrices and see how to maintain them quarterly or semi-annually with new inputs, new data. And then the market indices of average salaries can be looked at in your area, nationwide, worldwide, from wherever source you want to get them from. Aon Hewitt, national organization, wherever you go to find that data for your company. And then it can be matched to similar job descriptions from other companies that are out there on the internet, on LinkedIn, on Naukri, wherever you want it to go, to compare the quality of your job descriptions with theirs and what they're asking for that you're not, and vice versa, in order to not only normalize what you're doing, but to improve it without having someone sitting there trying to think of this, using the improvement of the greater whole to improve what you're doing in your business. Then you can cross-reference it with publicly available salary surveys, such as the ones that are done by Aon Hewitt if you want to pay for it, or if you want it for free, like the IEEE annual survey of engineering salaries around the world. And then you can auto-generate that information by member of the HR department and their staff and make the request for open positions by manager. It will allow the subdivision of data in a way that HR can't possibly give it to you today because there aren't enough people and there's not enough time. But the AI can subdivide it any way you want to subdivide it. And it can do it to the individual manager's use case. Posting of jobs on the company approved sites can be a push button activity. If you want initial screenings, you can have the managers included. You can have the finance team included for their checkbox approval for the funding for the position. If you want the initial screenings on skill set and experience and education to be looked at specifically, you can achieve nearly the same amount of quality review out of an AI tool now as you can an individual human recruiter looking over that resume to see if it meets the basic check boxes to make it past the gatekeeper. And the AI does it faster. Now, you can recommend candidates for review and highlight them by matching elements. So you can come up with, let's say, a green, yellow, red scheme, just like a traffic light, where all the items that matched your job description specifically are highlighted in green on that application. All the ones that matched it closely are highlighted in yellow, and all the ones that are there or are missing from what you described are highlighted in red, so that whenever the manager gets it, instead of having to read the whole thing to find out how much of a fit this is, it's color coded and they can just focus on the greens, focus on the reds or the yellows as they see fit to find out if it's close enough to be worthy of an interview. Speeding up the process and doing it in an automated fashion. It can even plug into your calendaring tools to recommend interview times between the manager and the candidate's availability, and it can post interview requests follow-on interview requests, rejection letters, and ta-da, even offer letters can be generated all by the tool. If you want to have the finance team QC this before it goes out, you can have it pass through them for their check. If you want HR to approve it before it goes out, you can have it pass through them for their check. Whatever your business process is that you want it to follow, it can follow. Do it in an automated manner. Do it with the proclivity of someone pushing the process forward, and be what we use in business terms around my office. We call it the 3 Ps: polite, professional, pressure. In essence, the AI can annoy you into doing the job so that you'll make the AI go away so that it gets its job done quickly and the process is more efficient. And it can do all of this all while giving the manager, the manager's department head, the candidate, the HR team, even the finance team if so desired, updates at the frequency each of those individuals wants it. Now, do you think your HR people go around remembering, oh, well, this particular manager wants to be updated once every 2 days, but the candidates have to be updated every day, but the legal department needs an update once a week, the HR department needs an update every day, and the finance department wants to be updated at 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoons? Of course not. Too complicated, too much to do. Most of the HR departments won't agree to those things, but the AI tool will. And so everything that I'm describing here can be done in some form or fashion in more than half the steps that I've listed here by the AI we've already discussed and you've already seen on the screen. Does your HR department do that today? No. Does your HR ERP do that today? Probably not. But the AI can. And that's the point here, ladies and gentlemen, that even though the AI might not be absolutely perfect, guess what? The human beings that are doing the job today aren't absolutely perfect either. And the AI, given the opportunity to learn, just like a child, can become as good at the task as someone like a child who grows up and learns. And generative AI learns through iterative repetition and application of its previous knowledge, very similar to a human. And so as your AI that you've put in place learns, adds data, performs iterations, it will get smarter, it will get better, and it will get more focused on what you as a company do. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful about when you're putting AI in is if you do things badly and you're lying to yourself about how well you think you do them, the AI is going to do them badly in a much more efficient manner. As we say in the computer industry, if you design a process to design a computer system or an AI to follow a bad process and you pave that cow path, it's going to follow that bad process or that cow path much more quickly than the cows would. So you're going to learn things about your own company that you need to improve and change about your processes and your organizational structures while you do this AI. It has the benefit to not only make the process more efficient, but the organization that's implementing the process more efficient as well. Now, doesn't some of this sound like what you'd want to have in your HR department, in your organization, here at the college, at your business, at the bank? Heck, even the chai vendor could benefit from this. So this is just an example of what we can do with just job descriptions and hiring. Unfortunately, because of time, I don't have time to go into the examples associated with performance improvement plans and firing or performance reviews. But understand that the detail for them is here as well, that the AI can do this for those functions just as well or even better. And if you asked me personally, what is the biggest piece of AI in the HR department that I think it could improve? The performance review cycle, ladies and gentlemen. Think about all the time that goes into your performance reviews, all the data that you're supposed to use, all the communication you're supposed to have with the people you're reviewing, all the things you're supposed to consider to be fair, and yet all the things that you have to apply uniquely to the individual in order to treat that individual as the unique person they are. AI can really impact the performance review process here. And if you have questions, we can talk about this during the QA or even have a conversation after at some later date if you like, in terms of what the performance reviews can look like in an AI tool. I believe very strongly that AI can enhance every single step in the performance review process of your organization. And I really think that as the peak of the mountain, that should be the focus as you build your AI up to its top. So these are some things, ladies and gentlemen, as we close out our conversation today that I want you to walk away with. Number one, AI is real. It's here to stay. Anybody that's out there saying, well, let's wait on AI until the law has been settled, or let's wait on AI to see what the next college does, or let's wait on AI for insert stupid reason here. Don't wait. AI is here. It's a train. It's moving. And if you don't get on it, you'll be running trying to catch it up the rest of your career. Number two, people on your staff and management are already using it. And they're using it potentially outside your company, over your company network, whether you admit it, whether you wish it or not. Number three, it can be used to revolutionize the HR process and benefit all users of HR services in any business, be that a public company, a private company, an education organization, a nonprofit. Everyone can benefit from this. And number four, don't be that person that acts as an impediment to AI's progress in your organization. Don't be that person. Because if you are, AI is a 10-ton boulder rolling down the side of a mountain, and if you decide to stand in its way to slow it down or try to stop it, it's going to roll right over you and keep right on going. Ladies and gentlemen, the cat's out of the bag. Let me be very clear about this. All these legal challenges people have with the AI tools, too late. The tools are already out there running. By the time the laws can be settled or copyright issues can be addressed, the information will already be baked into these AI data sets and these generative AI solutions, and the companies will all say that they can't rip the information back out because it's like a ball of spaghetti and there's no way to pull it out of there. So by the time these laws and these questions about copyright and whatnot get settled, the train will have already left the station. AI is something you need to jump on now. Don't wait. Because in the end, the only person who's going to lose is the people who said no and got in the way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I give the floor back to our moderator, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to take questions from participants.
Oh no, I bored everybody to tears. No.
No, sir. So what are the ethical issues in AI?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What are the ethical issues in AI?
The typical issues with AI?
Ethical.
Atypical, you said?
Ethical.
Oh, ethical. My apologies. Ethical. Well, that is a can of worms, is it not? I think I addressed some of those in the conversation about the issue of copyright and whatnot. I wish AI had considered that before the companies that were producing our AI models now had gone through and started building their models. I do. I wish they would have. But there's a part of me, technically, that understands why they didn't. And it's because they wanted their models to be as effective as possible and as encompassing as possible. So they made choices to use every piece of information the tools could touch, whether it was included in copyright or not. Yes, I do believe that we have an issue that we need to address with copyright law, other legalities of what an AI can do. I mean, at what point can you charge the AI with homicide if the AI decides to write a blog about a small child and makes them feel so bad about themselves that they commit suicide? Can you hold the manufacturer of the AI responsible? Can you hold the holster of the tool responsible? It's a very, very detailed and big issue that we have to address. But the fact of the matter is that holding the tool back is not how you address it. You need to teach. Excuse me, we can hear the person speaking. Yes, thank you.
Krishna, can you explain generative and cognitive AI using?
Sir, one more question. Can you
Certainly.
explain generative and cognitive used in real life environment?
Well, I think I explained the generative fairly well originally. I think the cognitive a little bit is more outside of my wheelhouse, to be honest with you. I'm looking more at the generative versus the traditional models, data only and data regurgitation versus data analysis and logical next step thought, which you get to generative. Cognitive AI is, in theory, designed around, the thinking mind and how you can have the data draw you a conclusion that isn't obvious from the data itself. I think that that's going to come down to the ability of the designers to algorithm creative thought. And how do we come to creative thought as human beings? Some of us were born with a better ability to do that than others, but all of us have the ability at some level to be creative. But how do we learn to be creative? We see the world around us. We see the world around us applied in a situation. We think about how it's applied in that situation, and then we imagine other situations it can be applied to. And then we adapt what we saw and know to be fact to the possibilities of what we can perceive as future. Creating the algorithms, the mathematics around how the AI can come to that same conclusion is fundamental to making the cognitive AI work. And I believe that's still an in-progress area of focus for the AI companies at this time.
So one more question. Do you think AI is going to increase work of lawyers both ways?
Oh my goodness, that is a great question. I will tell you now that I believe lawyers are the scourge of the earth, but I can't say that out in public, so you didn't hear me say that, so sorry. The fact of the matter is, one of the things that I hate about HR is that in so many organizations, HR has been placed as a department under legal. And the justification for that is that HR has to follow rules and laws. Therefore, why don't we place the HR department under the legal department, since that's the department that is governing our rules and laws? But as we apply the rules and laws to work, what we find is there's a box. This is the box of how we live and operate. But the HR department can't possibly navigate for each individual person how an individual law applies to them, or how the company's policies need to address each individual person. So what do? They take the policies and they narrow the focus down to something they can govern and something they can control and they can be consistent with. And we, the benefactors of what HR does, have to operate in this box instead of this one. I believe AI opens that world up and allows us to make the answers to HR problems and the information to HR situations and governance specific to each user. And because it's specific to each user, we don't have to live in this little box anymore that HR, because they're human beings with too much work and not enough time and not enough people, had to compress into our company policies. I am an absolute believer that, one size fits all policies are horrible and hurt companies more than they help. The idea of a, one policy for everyone concept that doesn't take the situation and the individual and the information into account draws down your best employees and your most creative people and forces them back into this little box. Every time we come up with these, no thinking policies, policies that don't allow for any creative interpretation, we ruin the best and brightest of our people by forcing them into the mediocrity of having to live in the box. AI presents us the opportunity of breaking that box open and expanding the world back out here and presenting the laws and the policies in a way that can affect each individual as is appropriate to them and their circumstance, their position in the company, their knowledge, their responsibilities, and their ability to live within it. So I feel very confident that AI can get us out of this one policy fits all model that we all live in now. Any other questions? And yes, just in case you were wondering, I really, really hope that AI helps us not have to use the lawyers so much.
Any question? Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable inputs. And so we are extremely grateful that in spite of time difference, you have delivered this session according to our schedule. I request you to accept a token of gratitude on behalf of organizing team and Yashwantrao Chauhan College of Engineering, Nagpur, for sparing your valuable time and guiding us. Thank you, sir, once again.
Well, that is so kind of you. Thank you all for showing me the patience of listening to this old man giving his presentation today. I hope you got something from it. I really, really do. I feel, as you can tell, very strongly that AI is going to change the world we live in, and it's going to change it in our lifetimes. Just like the invention of the automobile changed the job of people who bred horses for carts, the invention of AI is going to change our world just as dramatically. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and bless you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful day the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, honey.